everyone, to our third episode of the BLT Podcast, which is Board Talk with Lisanne and Tracy.
And
Vula Hoffman. So we have foreshadowed that we were going to be talking about return to work in this episode, and it's a sensitive topic sometimes with injured workers, especially the first time they hear the term return to work, or oh my God, Tracy, a return to work specialist from WSIB just called me, and how could they think I could return to work? Like now, I'm still going through treatment, or I'm still on crutches.
Panic, right?
Yeah,
it just starts the panic. What now?
So Tracy foreshadowed that we would have a special guest here with us today, and one of you who replied to his LinkedIn post got it right. We won't say who, but Joe, you know who you are. He foreshadowed that it would be Vula Hoffman, and Vula has recently retired from the WSIB.
And graduated, Lisanne.
Oh, you graduated?
We use the term graduated from the board.
There you go. And she was a director in return to work services for many years prior to her graduation. So I'm going to pass it over to Vula to discuss the general.
Well, maybe before we go there.
Okay.
Like, how's retirement going, Vula?
Okay.
Welcome to the show, first of all. And how's retirement going, or graduation?
Thank you. It's been great.
Yeah.
We've had a chance to travel a bit. I spent a lot of time in Thunder Bay and recently in Regina, but also in Greece and Poland, which has been wonderful.
Oh, so your top three was Thunder Bay, Greece, and Poland. Nice.
But things are going well. I'm doing a little bit of work, now more focused on systems work. So for years, I was with WSIB, focused on compensation in Ontario.
How many years did you do there?
31 years.
Same as me.
I know.
How many were you?
33.
Yeah.
I remember when you were the youngest manager, Tracy, until I joined.
Yes, stole my title.
Back in the day, maybe 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 25.
2000, I think, is when I became a manager.
Yeah, so it was right after you.
Yeah. Nice. So you've been starting to get busy now with some...
Starting to get busy. I'm doing a little bit of work, more focused on return to work and disability management systems across Canada. So it gives me a completely different view. Nice. It's exciting and great.
Mm-hmm. And like you said earlier, the gang's back together, right?
That's right. I thought I wasn't going to miss you guys. Sometimes you drove me nuts, but I'm really happy to see you.
And it's just funny, last week, I think it was, I saw Vula on the street.
Yes.
I was visiting someone else who's retired, and Vula drove by, so we got to chat about this a little bit we did all our prepping there right on the street.
Right on the spot.
Yeah. That was perfect.
Excellent.
So maybe to get going, Vula, maybe you could just go over, like, what's the whole return to work program about? Like, what's the key principles of it? Like,
there are three key principles, Tracy and Lisanne, and when I think of return to work, I think of three core things. So, and these are things that drive everything. So they drive the return to work processes, they drive the policies, the decision making, and the return to work plans. So really at the core of it are, three things, which include early and safe return to work, suitable work, and maintaining the relationship with the injury employer.
So we got our three key principles. Maybe let's look at early and safe return to work. Maybe explain that a bit for us and what that means.
Yeah, so back to what Lisanne was saying at the beginning, when people hear return to work or those early conversations, or even when they get a call from a return to work specialist saying, let's meet, people do get nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Especially injured workers, but sometimes even employers, because they think it means an immediate return to work and they may not feel that they're ready to return to work. But really, when we talk about early return to work, it's really talking about beginning the process, because we know, and actually evidence shows that recovery is better at work. So when we talk about early return to work, it's setting those conversations. So what it looks like for an employer is that they make that that call to say, how are you doing? Trying to understand what the individual might be struggling with, and what's going well, and just really a check-in to show care. For the injured person, it's having those open, honest conversations with their employer about what they feel they can do, what they might not be able to do, and staying connected to each other so that they can identify opportunities when they do become available. But it's not pushing you back to work before you're ready. We want to make sure that the work that you're returning to, or that an injured person's returning to, is safe and suitable, which gets me to the next core principle, which is suitable work, right? So when we think about the definition of suitable, what it really comes down to is the work safe? Is it within the individual's functional abilities? Is it
I'm going to say that's probably the most controversial one, right?
Yeah.
We always have, I think, we have return to work appeals. You'll probably agree they're going to kind of circle around suitability of the work. So very important we understand the suitability piece. And so one is the safe.
The safe. Is it within the individual's functional abilities? And that is a good point, Tracy. And I want to talk a little bit about what happens later on when somebody doesn't feel that the work is within their functional abilities.
Yeah.
And then we want to make sure that the work is productive and meaningful.
There's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lizanne will have some comments on that.
Yes, I will. So, just on that point, I do have something that I wanted to say. So, productive work means different things to different people.
Right.
And to an employer, when they're looking at, okay, I've got someone off on WSIB and I need to offer work, they're thinking, well, I need to offer something to get them back in the building so that they're no longer drawing off WSIB and I can use them to do work for the company.
Yeah.
Right? But the work cannot be, the work that's offered can't be like
demeaning,
a made up job. So I've been in a few situations when I worked at WSIB where I was in a pretty strong sector and there was a lot of this when that piece would come up. So I want to be clear to everybody that it's not a situation where an employer can say, I'm going to pay you your pre-injury wage of $35, $40 an hour, and you're going to pick up the garbage around your coworkers.
Or count bolts, or screw,
bolts.
And they call it inventory, but you're counting
that
nails.
type of things. Thing that is not productive to the company.
That's right. That's a good point, Lizanne. And I've seen a few scenarios myself. One was where someone had an injured person count the tiles on the ceiling. Well, that's not really productive. There's it doesn't benefit the business at all. And it actually creates a really poor work environment for everyone else as well. So it's not good for your business. But the other example I had was where there was suitable work. It was safe work. The injured person agreed to that work, and they were good with it. But we got a call from that injured person saying that they're really frustrated, they're really upset, there's not enough work. So that was interesting. So when we went to the work site, we found that there was about 2 hours worth of safe, suitable work.
Right.
And the rest of the day, they had the worker sitting by himself in a locker room on a bench. So that was very demeaning.
It is.
And immediately we determined that was not suitable, and we pulled him out of that situation.
And that happens, right? It starts off strong. We got a lot of work.
Yeah.
You get in there and it's 1-2 days, and then day 3 they run out of work.
Yeah.
And now they're really grasping at what to do. What they need to do is you need to call the WSIB, your case manager, or the return to work specialist to let them know, either the employer or the worker, because sometimes the employer can pop in, or the return to work can pop in to help the employer come up with additional jobs.
Right.
Yeah. Ideally, the best scenario is if there's good communication between the worker and the employer, especially the supervisor. They play a key role.
Yeah.
And if they can resolve it, that's great. But if they can't resolve it, please call the WSIB WSIB. And in my experience, they're there to help. And, you know, the return to work specialists will actually go on site if needed and get everyone together to make sure that the plan is on track and it's working well for everyone.
I was just going to ask about suitable. There was another one in there. So, what if the person doesn't like the job? You know, you're the worker and they want to give you a job in inventory or whatever. And what if they just don't like the job? What's your thoughts on that? What do we normally tell workers?
Yeah, well, we go back to the definition of suitable, right?
Right.
So we look at,
Safe.
you know, is it safe? Is it within the worker's functional abilities?
Yeah.
Is it productive and meaningful? And
Yeah.
the last one that I didn't talk about, does it help them restore their earnings to the greatest extent possible, which is a really important concept as well. So if we look at that, so again, I say we, but I'm retired. I get that, or graduated.
I do it all the time.
The royal we.
However, you know, what happens then if a worker doesn't feel that the work is suitable, then they need to, one, let their employer know, but two, ensure that immediately they advise the WSIB. And then they wouldn't assume that you're not cooperating right away. We'll talk about cooperation after.
Yeah, that's a big topic on its own.
But they won't assume you're not cooperating right away. They need to investigate and settle any types of disputes. So they will sometimes even go on site to look at what the issues are. And it's really important that we understand why someone feels the job is unsuitable. So is it that the job doesn't actually match the functional abilities, but everyone agrees on what the functional abilities are? Or is it that you don't agree with the functional abilities that are being used to make that determination, which comes down to level of impairment? And that's when, if a return to work specialist is involved, they'll flag the case manager, and the case manager will look at that as well to then and confirm whether or not the functional abilities.
Yeah, and just a point on functional abilities, what we're talking about is the restrictions, right? Can't lift over 10 pounds, can't sit for more than 40 minutes, need to take micro breaks, or, you know, can't climb ladders. So when we talk about these functional abilities, it's about listing those restrictions and making sure the job that's available, that Vula talks about being suitable, is within those restrictions. And yes, you can have disagreements around what the restrictions are or level of impairment. And then the second thing is you can actually appeal the modified work or the return to work plan. And from our last session, we know that you have 30 days. You know, once they set up a plan, there's 30 days to a time limit to appeal that.
Right. And so I'm going to bring up the topic of under suitability. A strict day shift worker for 20-some years that's seriously injured, okay, that has restrictions, and the work that is offered is suitable to their physical precautions, but it's offered on straight nights. And that person can say, you know, that's not comparable to what I was doing before, and I have all of these reasons, you know, I have to take my kids to school in the morning, or you know, all of that kind of stuff, or I'm a single parent, I need to be there for my child overnight, those types of things. So I've always taken the position when I was at WSIB that unless the person has signed a contract at the beginning that says I may be required to work variable hours, that just having the work injury is not a reason to forego that contract. If you signed on for straight days, then that's not suitable. But I think you had some different views about that. So I want to discuss that.
One thing to keep it, this is about the temporary modified work. We're not getting into WT or like permanent modified. This is just to help you get back to your regular job.
So one thing I wanted to talk about to kind of get, is go back to the core principles, right? And that ties into that. So the third core principle that we haven't talked about that's really important, and in my perspective is one of the most important, is maintaining the employment relationship, right? So we do everything we can to maintain that employment relationship. And our policies, we call it hierarchy when we're talking kind of shop talk, but really in the policies it talks about we always look at the pre-injury job, then the pre-injury job with accommodation. If that's not suitable, then we look at alternate work. And sometimes it might be appropriate to look at different shifts. So we have to look at each scenario individually. And before I answer that question, I just really want to say that like maintaining that employment relationship is critical, because that employer, our best opportunity to actually work with an employer to accommodate a job, to modify a job, to look at new work, and it is with the injury employer. They can do that best, and they are in the best position to help that injured person maintain their employment and stay in the workforce. And we'll maybe talk about what happens
and their
long-term
employment benefits, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
full loss of earnings, whereas WSIB pays 85% of net.
That's
maybe
right.
90%, Sue.
That's right.
Right.
The employer,
Apparently.
staying with your employer, you're going to maintain your full earnings. But the other piece, and Lizanne, you just mentioned it, is your benefits, right? I don't think many people really reflect on the fact that if that employment relationship gets severed, your benefits are no longer there either. The benefits that you have with the employer, the health benefits, maybe your pension benefits, right? So in my from my experience, it's best when everyone, the employer and the worker, work together to maintain that relationship as much as possible, because we get the best outcomes, both for the injured person, because they maintain their connection with the workplace. They see their coworkers. Like, I thought I wasn't going to miss these guys. Sometimes they drove me nuts, but actually it's nice to see you today, right?
That's exactly.
But you don't know what you're going to miss when it's not there, right? And so that's important. But maintaining your wage, maintaining your employment is really important. And then for the employer, they're able to, they've invested in this person. They've spent a lot of time training them. They have experience and knowledge, so it's great to retain them. Usually you save on productivity, etc.
A lot of times there's jobs around the employer that just don't get done. This is a great opportunity. Right. Sometimes it is, is it suit? Well, actually, I put down a quick note. We're going to go through a quick fire with Vula on, is this suitable or not? And like, for example, I know there's a lot of employers that send the FAF or offer modified work the day of the injury. So I get injured, I report my injury, and they say, you're low back? Here, we have a job for you. You're going to your doctor. Here, get this FAF filled out and come back to work tomorrow. Is that okay?
Sometimes. I'm always going to answer sometimes. It depends, because we're dealing with people, we're dealing with injuries, and we're dealing with workplaces. So it's very dynamic. We have, every case has to be looked at on its own merit. So sometimes it can be. What's really important is that people talk, because, I'll never forget a scenario with this young injured worker. They had lost 4 fingers, and I met that individual in the parking lot before a return to work meeting. When we went into the meeting with the employer, it was incredible, because the injured person was really upset at the employer. The employer they felt the employer had ignored them. They weren't compassionate. They hadn't called them. And when we talked to the employer saw the injured worker and felt awful. They had no idea that this injured worker had lost all 4 fingers. They were there the day of the accident. They actually showed up at the hospital, but at that point they thought that it wasn't as serious as it was, and they were angry because they're thinking, why had they not come back to work? So it was it was incredible, because the employer apologized profusely. They felt compassionate towards the worker. The worker felt heard and understood why they hadn't heard from the employer, and they came together. And I didn't follow the case all the way through, but I do know that the employer was looking at other opportunities with training for that individual. But it's communication. So back to your question, it might be, Tracy, it might be suitable, right? It depends on the scenario. But if there's ever any concerns, talk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's probably the perfect storm of, like we've seen that where they get injured, they leave, they get the FAF, a functional abilities form to bring to your doctor, get it filled out to see what your restrictions are. There's an expectation, I think the employer expects the worker's going to follow up with them. They don't. The worker gets their thing done and they're waiting. They don't know what to do next. And the employer's waiting, for the worker to do that. But the worker's waiting for the employer to call them and follow up. And then both parties get kind of mad because no one's following up with the other. Right. And then you get into this relationship issue of, the worker's going to feel like they don't care.
Well,
and then on the other side, the employer feels like they're faking it. They're just at home.
Yeah. But if you manage expectations, so if you give someone a functional abilities form, and you're saying, take this to your doctor, then let me know tomorrow by 9 a.m. What the results of that are. Like, you don't need to come back in if it says, can't return to work.
Right.
But set a time, so set the expectations. And if the worker calls the next day and says, these are the functional abilities that they've given me, let me know if you have work, let me know by tonight, so if you need me to come in tomorrow.
So have you ever seen an FAF, so the medical report says unable to work, and then the employer still offers modified work?
Yep.
What happens then, Vula?
Well, what happens is the return to work specialist usually reaches out to the case manager. The case manager will look at the claim and determine what the functional abilities are. They might ask for some more objective medical from the treating practitioner and then move forward from there. But this conversation is really making me reflect on the cooperation policies, which we didn't get into, and I'm not going to go into them because they're easy.
Another podcast.
That's another podcast.
They're easy to read, but from my perspective, like the cooperation policies are they're more philosophical, right? They're more they are definitely obligations and requirements. But when you read those policies, it talks about, staying connected, talking to each other. If things change, providing updates, working together to understand barriers, to identify solutions, and develop a safe and suitable plan as early and as soon as possible. It actually depicts what a healthy workplace looks like, where people are communicating, talking, and they're trusting each other. But they have to be there because we know that's not always the scenario, right?
Right. The policies are written with the assumption that prior to the accident, for years prior to the accident, there was a good relationship there.
Yeah.
If there was not a good relationship there, then the work injury is just heightening now.
Everything's magnified.
This push and pull that was already happening, right? So
one thing that I found over many years and many return to work meetings was that when you walk into a meeting, it might look very complicated on paper when you're reading the claim file. But when you walk in and everyone likes each other and they have a good relationship, the return to work meeting is very easy and you come up with good solutions, great solutions. So in your scenario, Lizanne, where someone didn't want to work night shift, usually it might not get there because they're talking and everyone's compassionate and understanding and they're coming up with a good solution. But where the case might look very simple on paper, you walk in and you know that the relationship is not there, then the return to work meeting becomes very complicated. And we get those types of offers that might not be the best, or we get resistance, or maybe people aren't speaking up, so we don't really know why they're feeling that the work that's being offered is not suitable. And sometimes it's very good reason. There's very good reasons that if we knew, or not we, again, if they knew, if the WSIB knew, or you guys as reps knew, you can actually resolve those
Well,
issues.
I was just going to bring up, I think a key point you made in that is the in-person. Now, we saw, obviously, with COVID, everything was done virtual, and I don't think we're back to 100% in person. And I know we won't get too much into it, but there was a lot of resistance to go out in person. We can do it virtual. Why go out? But
yes.
We know that in person, you're going to get a lot better result. You're going to get a lot more opportunities come up to fix either relationship or brainstorm ideas for return to work.
Yeah,
so it's imperative. I don't know if you agree that they get back to in-person meetings.
The best meetings happen in person, and what should workers and employers expect in meetings, and then some tips I think I have for both a worker and an employer. So when the return to work meeting does happen in person, what should happen is the return to work specialist acts more as a facilitator. This is a meeting for the workplace party meeting, right? Yeah. So it's the workers' opportunity to talk about what they feel they can do, what they can't do, and any other issues they might have. And it's an opportunity for the employer as well to explore.
Is it okay for the worker to give ideas? Because we see where the worker will say, oh, you know what, I could do, it could be a mechanic saying, I could do the service advisor job. I could help on that. Is it okay if the worker comes up?
100%, and I feel that the worker's in the best position to know what they can do and what they can't do. So what I've always told workers is before the meeting, take some time to really reflect on your job. What parts of the job do you feel you can do still? What parts of the job might you need some help with? And do you have any ideas of how it can be accommodated or modified? Right. And then for the employer, they should, one thing I absolutely feel is critical, it doesn't happen all the time, is please bring the supervisor in. And before you go in, also reflect on, what the job is, what opportunities can you make with respect to accommodating the work, or what other types of work is available. Ensure that there's a decision maker in the room. One thing that I will say I never see in meetings, and now that I'm taking more of a systems view of return to work programs, is that employers don't really talk about what their internal return to work or disability management program is at that meeting. Take some time on that agenda, because when most employers have policies and really great programs, but they're in a binder, and maybe someone got trained years ago, and no one really knows people forget like what the policies are, what expectations are, whose role is what in this process, and then also what other supports might be available through the workplace to help make things possible. So my recommendation for employers is to take some time on the agenda to talk a bit about their program, how they support people with disabilities, and what supports are available. I feel that would go a long way. And also ensure that there's a decision maker in the room, because sometimes there's a lot of great great solutions that come
goes
up,
nowhere,
but there's no decision making. And for that, the return to work specialist will give you a return to work plan. That is golden. One, it actually demonstrates due diligence on both sides, because it demonstrates that both parties have sat down, they've talked, they've worked together to identify barriers, develop solutions. Make sure that the return to work plan, and make suggestions of what you want to see in the return to work plan, that it says that Tracy is going to order a chair and they're going to bring it to the workplace by X date, for example. It should be very specific. And then you have that plan. So the supervisor has that plan, the worker has that plan. If there's any issues with that plan, you can make adjustments, right? It's not a one and done. Return to work is a continuous process, but that plan is golden.
Right.
So thank you very much. We have only covered this much of the return to work process, but we're going to cut it here, because we will come back in another episode.
It's probably 3-4 episodes of return to work that we'll go over.
Exactly. So in summary, what are the 3 key principles of return to work?
Early and safe return to work,
right?
Suitable work,
and
maintaining the employment relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there, just to clarify for some of you who might be thinking, Vola said that I'm not paying into my pension if I'm not going back to work.
Right.
So you are still building your pension.
Yes, on a return to work plan.
On a return to
For
work
sure.
plan, and you are still building your pension while you're off on WSIB.
Yeah.
Right?
As long as
you don't accept outside employment.
Or retire or quit.
Exactly.
Never do
So-
that. Never retire or quit unless you get some really good advice on it, and everyone's scenario is different.
Yes.
That's our last word of advice.
That's
you
a
go.
good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
See you on
you.
the next one.
Yep.
What you feel, just theory. What you see, just